the tomatoes on the side story. So let's go back to 2010, and I was living in Vegas, and there was a Subway fairly close by to where I was living. And I went there a few times, but I hadn't gone there in a while. And I went back to the Subway, and I ordered my usual, which was some kind of sandwich. I don't remember which sandwich it was, but it was some kind of sandwich, but I asked for the tomatoes on the side. And the person behind the counter said, "Oh, no, I can't do that." I said, "What do you mean you can't do that?" And they said back to me, "I can't do that. I can't give you tomatoes on the side." So I thought they were getting confused. I thought that they believed that I was asking for tomatoes on the side and on my sandwich, which should be fine too at Subway, from everything I knew about Subway. But I clarified, no. I don't want these tomatoes on the sandwich. Whatever you were going to put on the sandwich, please just put on the side. And they told me, "No, we understand. We just can't do that." I said, "Why can't you? This sandwich comes with tomatoes, right? Every sandwich here comes with tomatoes, right?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, well, take those same tomatoes that were to come on my sandwich and put it on the side." And they said, "No, we're trying to tell you, sir, we can't do that." I said, "Well, why can't you?" "Well, we're not allowed to," they told me. So I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, the owner told us we're not allowed to." I said, okay. So is the owner concerned that you're giving away too much packaging? Now, the packaging, by the way, is just paper, so I didn't see why they couldn't just wrap some tomatoes on the side. Sometimes they'll put it in a little plastic container, but they don't have to. I said, "Look, if it's about the packaging, don't worry about it. You can just wrap it all in the same package. I don't care. Just put it outside the sandwich. I don't care how you wrap it. In fact, if you really have to, give it to me. Give me the 2 tomatoes, and I'll drop them in the package. I don't care. Just, I'd like the tomatoes not on the sandwich." And again, they said, "We can't do that." Now at this point, my head was about to explode, because this made no sense. It made absolutely no sense. If a sandwich comes with tomatoes, why not take those exact same tomatoes that were going to be on that sandwich and just not put them on the sandwich and just give them to me separately? If I'm not requiring additional packaging, if it doesn't require extra effort, which it doesn't, instead of putting the tomatoes on the sandwich, just leave them on the side of the sandwich and then wrap the whole thing up, why can't you do it? Because we were told not to. What? I had to get to the bottom of this. I said, "Now, hold on a second here. If I tell you I'm not going to order this sandwich if you won't give me these tomatoes on the side, will you let me walk out of here?" They said, "Unfortunately, yes, we have to let you walk out of here. We cannot put those tomatoes on the side." Now, I've had some people ask me when I've told this story before, why didn't you just give up at that point and either accept the tomatoes on the sandwich and take them off yourself, or just say no tomatoes? Because either of those options would have been acceptable to them. I could have just let them make it and just pull the tomatoes off, or I could have just forgone the tomatoes that day, or every time I came to that Subway. When I'd been to that Subway previously, they didn't have this rule, but it had been a while. But when I went on this day in 2010, I was not allowed to have the tomatoes on the side, the same tomatoes that were otherwise on the sandwich. So why didn't I just take the easier route then? Well, the reason I didn't take the easier route is because that wasn't what I wanted, and there was no reason for this. And there has to be some level of appreciation for me as a customer. That doesn't mean that they have to do exactly what I want, but that does mean that something nonsensical like this shouldn't be done. So this is a Subway, and they also have to adhere to certain rules of a Subway. This is not Joe's Sandwich Shop. And I've talked about this before. In fact, I talked about it recently with Alan Kessler and his Burger King situation. That whenever you own a franchised location of a known brand, you have to adhere to the rules and standards of that brand. So if it were Joe's Sandwich Shop, then Joe could do whatever the hell he wanted. It could be stupid, like this is definitely stupid, but this would be his right to do, because I couldn't walk in with the expectation that Joe is going to give me my tomatoes on the side if I want them. Joe should if he wants his business to stay open, and not lose his customers, but he wouldn't have to. Joe can make all the weird and outlandish rules he wants, and his business will probably suffer for it, but he can do it. And if I don't like it, then I can walk out and never come back to Joe's. Maybe I'll write a bad review, but he can do it, and I really can't force him to do anything otherwise. However, Subway, I went to Subway because it's a known brand. And there's certain expectations, there's certain standards they have. And one standard that Subway has, that I knew they had, was that you could get whatever toppings you want, and you can get them wherever you want, and you can get extras for free. Now, I couldn't say give me 20 tomatoes, there's some limit, but I wasn't even asking for extra tomatoes. But anything I want on the side that I could normally get on the sandwich is totally allowed at Subway and always has been. And that's one of the expectations I have going to Subway. Now, I've never had this issue before anywhere else, but that's just something you kind of take for granted, that this is one of the basic standards of Subway that you can do, and that he can't just make up his own absurd rules and still have a Subway. If he wants his absurd rules, then he has to make his own sandwich shop, which won't get the brand recognition and won't get people coming in there because it's at Subway, which is the exact reason I came in there. So I knew all this. So I wasn't going to just back down to this and say, oh, okay, cool, no problem, I'll do it. In general, I also don't like backing down to nonsense. Now, I realize the world does not revolve around me. And what I believe is right and sensible is not what everybody else necessarily believes is right and sensible. So I understand there's different ways of doing things. There's differences of opinion. There's differences in how customers should be treated, how I feel, and how maybe a business owner feels. I know that there's these differences and that I am not the final word on these topics. However, when something is absolutely nonsensical and stupid, I do not want to give in to it. So if a customer is going to be treated this way, then number one, I don't want to patronize the business. I don't want them to get any of my money. They don't deserve it. And number two, I want everyone to know about it. So I will write a negative review so others who look it up. Now, Subway, it's not going to happen that much because most people don't look up Subway reviews because most people know what to expect with Subway. But in general, I will write a negative review to warn others that this is what goes on at such and such business. And I'll always be honest and forthright about it. I'm not going to just make up things to trash someone that they don't deserve or that things didn't happen. But I will warn other consumers if customers aren't treated with respect or they're hit with super nonsensical rules or weird things that happen there that are totally out of the ordinary and show no respect for those trying to patronize the business. So that is my right as a customer, just like it's their right to run their business how they want within reason, because if it's a franchise, then they do have to adhere to those rules. Otherwise, they have to create their own brand and then try to sink or swim with that. You can't have the best of both worlds where you have a popular brand and then just make the rules you want and not care the standards the brand wants you to uphold. You can't do that. So those are the reasons I wouldn't back down. I know at Subway that I can get my tomatoes on the side. And I was going to either get my tomatoes on the side or there was going to be a problem. So I said, is there a manager here? And the employees, I will give you credit. I will give the credit to the employees back then. They were nice. In fact, they looked kind of scared. When I first asked for the tomatoes on the side, the guy looked very nervous before telling me I can't have it, even before I objected to not being able to have it. He looked nervous. And then the girl next to him looked nervous. I could tell they were very uncomfortable with this situation. I could tell they actually agreed with me, but couldn't say it out loud. And I wasn't being delusional there. I have been at businesses before where I disagree with something, and the employees completely disagree with me, and they think I'm an asshole. And they think I'm totally out of line and unreasonable. That wasn't the case here. I could just tell that they agreed with me, and they thought their boss was crazy, but of course they couldn't say it out loud. They were kind of just softly telling me that this is just something they absolutely, positively can't do. In fact, I was told even at one point that they were threatened with being fired if they were to give the tomatoes on the side. And they were sincere. I mean, they sounded really sincere. They were nice, these employees. And that was the one thing I felt a little bad about. And I wasn't being a jerk to them. I was asking them logically, why can't I have it? And are you sure you understand what I'm asking? But once I got it, that they knew exactly what I was asking for and still telling me I can't have it, and kind of relaying to me that the owner put the fear into them that they're going to lose their jobs if they give this to me, I was not mad at them at all. I understood the command came from above. But I did ask if there was a manager. And they said, no, but we can call the owner for you if you like. I said, really? So you can actually call the owner for me right now, and I can speak to him about these tomatoes on the side that I can't have? And they said, yes. Mm-hmm. Well, this was going to be an interesting conversation, because I was going to challenge this guy to explain to me why I can't have those same tomatoes that would otherwise go on the sandwich on the side of the sandwich. So it was going to be me with my relentless customer service logic versus some crazy control freak owner who scares his employees with threat of firing that they better not give the tomatoes on the side. This is going to be an interesting convo. No matter what comes of it, I knew it would be memorable and interesting. So I said, yes, by all means, yes. Call him up. So they picked up the phone and they dialed him. They told him a customer wanted to speak to him without even introducing it, and handed the phone to me. So I spoke to the guy. And I explained what I wanted. I explained my logic for why I should be able to have it. And he came back saying to me, so let me get this straight. You want this sandwich, but you want the tomatoes on the side and not on the sandwich. I said, yes. He said, why would you want that? I said, because that's the way I like eating it. He says, but I don't understand why you would want that. Why would you want the tomatoes if you're not going to eat them on the sandwich? I said, because I like tomatoes, but I don't actually like them on the sandwich. But since it comes with the sandwich, I like to eat them separately. He says, well, it sounds to me you're just trying to get extra tomatoes. I said, no, but I'm not. That's the whole point. I actually told them, don't give me anything extra, which at every Subway they will give me extra, by the way, I told him. And I believe that every Subway you can get extra, but I'm not even asking for that. I want the tomatoes they were going to put on anyway on the side. And he said, yeah, but if you're not going to have them on the sandwich, then it is extra, because what you're really doing is you're just eating a sandwich the way you like it, and then you're having me give my tomatoes to you on top of that. And he wasn't trolling me. He wasn't joking here, because remember, he had really put the fear into these employees not to do this. So he really believed I was rolling him for tomatoes. The way he saw it was that I was ordering a sandwich, and then because I don't like tomatoes in the sandwich, but I like tomatoes in general, that it's kind of like me getting free tomatoes out of him. Can you believe it? Like, he didn't see it that they come with a sandwich, and whatever I want to do with them, I can. He was looking at it like, well, if I won't have it on the sandwich, then I'm just finding a way for him to also give me free tomatoes, because otherwise I wouldn't get them if I couldn't have them on the side. It was totally fallacious logic. So I kept trying to explain to him that if tomatoes come with a sandwich, and I said, do they come with a sandwich? He said, yes. I said, if they come with a sandwich, what I want to do with these tomatoes should be my business. So I said, in fact, if I wanted to order the sandwich and then take those tomatoes, which come with it, and drop them in the trash, just because I like watching them fall into the trash can, I should be able to do that. You may see it as a waste of food, but if tomatoes come with it, I should be able to do what I want with them. I could eat them, I could throw them away, I could use them as frisbees, whatever I want. And he said, again, this looks to me like you're just trying to get free tomatoes because you don't want them on the sandwich. I couldn't reason with this guy. So I said, you're not making any sense here. Again, if it's the same tomatoes, what's the problem? He said, I'll tell you what the problem is. We had a big issue here with people coming in and asking for all these toppings on the side, and then they'd make their own little salad out of it. So instead of them just having a sandwich, they had a sandwich and a salad, and the salad was free on me. And I didn't like that, They'd ask for tomatoes, they'd ask for lettuce, they'd ask for olives, they'd ask for whatever else, and so they'd end up with a real salad that they made, and they were basically getting it for free, and I didn't appreciate that. I felt that was taking advantage of me, so I put an end to that practice. So I said, well, first of all, if they want to do that with the stuff that comes with the sandwich, they should be able to. Whatever way they want to configure the sandwich, they should have a right to do it, as long as it's not costing you extra. And it sounds to me that maybe the problem is with people asking for extra things. So maybe you should just put a limit on them getting extras, which would prevent them from basically having a free salad on you, as you said. But you can't just say what people can do with the stuff that comes on the sandwich anyway. That doesn't make any sense. And he said, no, again, if they're going to make a salad out of it, if they're going to make a side dish out of it, then to me, that's something separate they need to pay for. And go, oh my God, this guy he's just not getting it. If something comes with something, you can't decide what they do with it. It makes no sense. It makes no sense with any kind of thing you would purchase. I mean, can you think of anything that you can buy where the person you're buying it from then puts restrictions on how you can use the stuff that comes with it? Like, let's say I bought an iPhone, and I said to the guy at the Apple store, you know what, I already have a phone charger, so I don't really need the phone charger that comes with it. But what I like doing is I like making art out of the phone charger. So I'm going to take the phone charger wire, and I'm going to make some art out of it. You think they're going to say, well, we got to take the charger out here. You're not allowed to make art out of our phone charger. No, it doesn't matter what I say I'm going to do with the phone charger. I could say that as soon as I get home, I'm going to shred the phone charger for fun and then drop it in the garbage. The phone charger comes with the iPhone, so whatever I want to do with it is my business. But this guy did not believe I could do whatever I wanted with a tomato. So then I moved on to the next question. I said, I've got a question for you. What if I ordered the sandwich as it comes, but I pulled the tomato off and ate it on the side while I'm in your restaurant? Would that be allowed? Because remember, he doesn't want you eating the tomato on the side. He thinks that's a sin. He thinks that's a way to screw him and to have a free side dish on his dime. So I said, so what if I just took it off the sandwich and ate it the same way? What if I did it right in your restaurant? How would you feel about that? And he came back saying, actually, that would be fine. And I said, wait a minute, hold on here. So you are fine with me having a tomato on the side, but it has to touch the sandwich first. It has to be on the sandwich first. At that point, it can be on the side. And he said, yes, once it's on the sandwich, then you can do what you want with it. I said, so why does it have to touch the sandwich? He says, because it comes with the sandwich, so if we put it on the sandwich, then at that point you've bought it on the sandwich, otherwise you're getting it for free on the side. I go, but it's the same freaking tomato! It's the same one! Why does it have to touch the sandwich first? So he said to me, look, I'm tired of this conversation. Now, are you going to get the sandwich or not? I can't waste any more time talking to you. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to ask you this. I am absolutely not going to order this or any sandwich unless I can have a tomato on the side. So you're telling me that you're going to lose my business forever, and you're fine with that, simply because they can't leave the tomato on the side for me instead of putting it on the same sandwich, the very same tomato. And he said, yes, it is your choice if you want to eat here or not, but those are my rules, and we're not going to bend them for you. So if that's the reason, then don't come back. I said, okay. Well, what if I post this on a local poker forum that I'm a big part of, which I was at the time on donkdown.com, which doesn't exist anymore. But I said, what if I post this in the poker forum and a lot of poker players who live in this area who come to the subway see this and think it's ridiculous and how you treat your customers and don't come back? Are you okay with that? He said, okay, if you can do what you want. You can post what you want. But I am not changing this. You are not allowed to order a tomato on the side or any of the toppings on the side at this Subway. So I just hung up on him. I didn't even say goodbye. I just hung up on him. Handed the phone back to the employee, and I said, "Wow, this guy you're working for, this guy is really something else." And they kind of nodded at me. They quietly nodded at me. Like, I feel sorry for you working for this guy. I said, well, nothing against you guys. I'm sorry to have put you through this. It's not your fault. You work for a crazy man. I won't be back. So sorry for wasting your time. Goodbye. And I walked out. And I truly felt bad for those employees who seemed like nice people. So what did I do after that? Well, I decided there's only so much I can take. This guy had to pay for what he did. So I Googled how to make a Molotov cocktail, and I threw 3 of them through the window that night. No, that's not what I did. I decided, though, to get the word out and to maybe force this gentleman's hand in a way that I felt I could, and not through Molotov cocktails or anything that would be illegal, but had to legally force his hand. So first thing I did was post about it on Donkdown. Now, how do you think people on Donkdown reacted to this? And keep in mind, some of these were the same people as who currently post on Poker Fraud Alert's forum, but not all of them. There's a lot of people who are newer on Poker Fraud Alert who weren't around 11 years ago, but some of them were. So what do you think the general reaction was to my posting the tomatoes on the side story? Well, it was pretty negative. Against me! Yeah. On Donkdown, they were laying into me, telling me that I was entitled, that I was a horrible customer, that I have no right to tell this man how to run his business, that I was being a prima donna for not just taking the tomato off the sandwich myself, that I had no right to ask for him to leave the tomato on the side, even though it is a Subway where it is supposed to have these standards where they will do this for you, and that they were happy that this guy would not relent to me, and that this guy would not back down, and told me that it's going to be tomato on the sandwich, no tomato, or get the fuck out. They were happy. And they weren't just being trolls. Well, some of them were. Some of them were being trolls. Some of them were just saying it to irritate me. I will admit that. But there were some there who honestly thought that I was in the wrong. Even with all the info. Even knowing that Subway says that you can't do that. Even though it was the same tomato. Even though all they had to do was leave it on the side of the sandwich in the same packaging and not put it on the sandwich. And these are not pre-made. These are all custom made. You can't even say it's extra effort for the employees to have to go fish the tomato out. They don't have to put the tomato on in the first place. They're making the sandwich right in front of me. That's how Subway works. As I'm sure you know, you've probably been there at least once. So there was no reason for this other than this guy being a control freak and an asshole. But the forum was very against me on this. And the reason they were against me was kind of twofold. One of the reasons they were against me was because they were picturing me as like an asshole demanding customer. And there's a reflex people have that instead of the customer always being right, the customer's wrong. When there's a dispute between a customer and a company, a lot of people will reflexively back the company because everybody's been at a business where there's an asshole customer there holding everything up, being a jerk, creating a tense situation, and you just feel crappy being there and you wish that person would go away, and you feel bad for the employees dealing with this asshole customer who is in the wrong and being unreasonable. So you think of these situations from your own life, and then you cast it onto me, and you think, well, why was Druff acting like this? Why Druff is being that guy in this case? And they think about that, and they kind of reflexively take the side of the business owner, and they also wrongly jump to the incorrect belief that, well, it's his business, he can do what he wants. Well, number one, no, he can't because it's a franchise. And number two, even if he could, even if this is his own shop that wasn't a Subway, there's a matter of what he could do and a matter of what he should do. So an independent restaurant that's not a franchise really can do what it wants without breaking the law, but you can also mistreat customers. There's a lot of things you can do that are within your rights to do that still make you an asshole. And yes, a business owner can be an asshole. For example, if I owned a restaurant and someone was eating in my restaurant and I'm looking at them, I say, wow, that's an ugly person. I could, if I wanted, walk up to that person and say, you know what? I've been watching you eat, and you are incredibly ugly. I just want to let you know that. I could do that. There would be no law against it. But that would be an asshole thing to do. And I can't just say, well, it's my business. I can call you ugly if I want. Well, I can, but that's not going to be very good for future business, especially if the word gets out. And I shouldn't, because it's a dick thing to do. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should as a business owner. As a business owner, you do need to set certain sensible rules, and you do have a right to do things how you want, but not do things how you want to where it's abusive to other people, even if it's within the law. So this guy was just being a controlling dick, and he was violating the franchise rules. But as many times as I tried to explain this at the forum, they were not having it, and it was a combination of trolls making fun of me and people who legitimately believed, and in fact were getting angry, that I was arguing that he was in the wrong there. So this was a kind of an infuriating yet amusing conversation. Like, I would kind of get mad as I'm arguing with people I can tell genuinely believe I was wrong in that one. But I was also kind of laughing at the whole thing as I'm typing and going, I can't believe I'm having this argument. I'm actually sitting here as a 38-year-old man, sitting here on a forum, on a poker forum, arguing about tomatoes on the side. Like, I was actually having that argument. That was weird. It was amusing, and I knew it was going to be a memorable forum thread, and people still remember it who were around in those days. And yet, it also felt very stupid. And I was also really honestly annoyed with the people who legitimately thought I was wrong. I'm not talking about the trolls who just were trying to inflame the situation and try to come up with any nonsensical reason why I was wrong so they can watch me go off about it. I'm talking about the people who really believed it, and I could tell the difference. In fact, the people I was mainly responding to were the ones who were serious. The trolls, I just let that go because trolls are trolls. Anyway, I was not going to let the forum deter me. I was still going to take action. In fact, there were some people who were giving me a hard time about my assertion about Subway's rules. Some were telling me I was wrong. Some were saying, no. This guy has a lot of leeway as a Subway franchisee, and he can make this rule. Just because most Subways don't make this rule doesn't mean that he can't. He can if he wants. And many were very strongly insisting that I had no idea what I'm talking about. In fact, some asked me, how many Subways have you owned, Druff? And I said, well, none. And when was the last time you actually checked with Subway what their rules are? Have you ever asked corporate about this? Have you ever seen it printed? I said, no, but I know Subway's general policies, and this would be within their policy that I can get whatever toppings I want where I want within reason. As I said, I can't get 20 of something, but anything I get, even extra of something, I can have either on the sandwich or on the side. They didn't believe me. They told me I was crazy. So I decided I got to settle this. And also I wanted to stick it to this guy for being such a dick and for abusing his franchise, because it pisses me off when I go to a franchise which is supposed to have certain standards they adhere to and they don't. Much more than it pisses me off to go to a private place that just the owner's a dick. But at least I had no expectation going there. At least I know that I have to learn as I get there the way this business operates, and if it's good, then good, I'll come back. If not, then I won't come back. Here at Subway, I have an expectation that has been built for decades. So, I called Subway. I called the corporate number. Didn't record it, but I called, and I'm going to be totally honest with what they said, as I was at the time. And I told them the story. And I asked the person at corporate that I was talking to, do they have to allow me to have tomatoes on the side? And their response was more than I could have ever hoped for. They didn't just agree with me, they emphatically agreed with me. They agreed with more than what I thought they'd agree. They said, number one, you can have it anywhere. You want it on the side, you can get it on the side. You can have it in any container you want. Just whatever way you want it served to you, you can have it served to you. Number two, you can have pretty much all the extras you want. They said, we can understand refusing it if you're getting way, way, way too much, but if you want a lot of something, if you want a lot of extra tomatoes, a lot of extra lettuce, a lot of extra olives, they have to give it to you. There's only certain things you can't get extras of. You can't just get extra meat, for example, without paying for it. But these toppings you can get a lot extra, and they have to give it to you. That's another rule of the Subway franchise, at least in 2010. Furthermore, they told me that that this guy has no right to make these rules, that he absolutely cannot put down these type of restrictions. So not only is it their policy that I should get these things, he is prohibited by Subway's rules from changing any of these things. And that for him to get on the phone and argue with me and tell me that I can't have it and I can walk out if I don't like it, that it goes completely against the rules of Subway. So I said, okay, great. So what can we do about this? What can you do about this? And they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to submit a complaint, and we are going to speak with the owner of this franchise and get him to correct it. I said, okay. And I said, how will I know when this is done? Now, I wasn't planning to go back because I didn't want to give this jerk any business. But I was curious what the result was going to be. I really wanted to hear them call me back and say, yeah, we forced this guy to give you tomatoes on the side in the future. In fact, I don't know, had they called me and said that, then I was kind of thinking, like, if they do call me and say that, am I going to go back there and just to stick it to him to do it and have him know I did it? But on the other hand, I didn't want to give him more business or any business, so I wasn't sure what I was going to do there. However, I was very disappointed that they didn't call me back. And when I tried to follow up on it, the person I called at corporate, they said they saw there was some case, but they can't see what happened with it, and they can't reveal to me what happened with it. So I thought this was a waste of time. I thought, well, okay, I got the rule, so that's good. So I did post the rule on Donkdown, and that's when the whole subject kind of started to die out, because the whole Druff, you're just feeling entitled, this guy was perfectly within his rights, blah, blah, blah. Once I posted he's not within his rights and call Subway at this number and ask if you don't believe me, that shut the conversation down, because anyone knew they could verify what I was saying if I wanted, or if they wanted, and they knew I was probably telling the truth. And so if the guy was violating Subway rules and I was right all along, what more is there to say? So at that point, the conversation kind of died. However, remember, I had no idea what happened. I didn't know if Subway ever really contacted him. I didn't know if they compelled him to make any changes. In fact, I was wondering if this was going to continue for years going forward, and I'd never know because I was never going to go back there. Well, somebody volunteered, someone in Vegas volunteered to go to that Subway and attempt to get tomatoes on the side. So they did. They walked in, they ordered a sandwich, they said, tomatoes on the side, please. And the person at the counter said, okay. And they took a picture of the tomato on the side of the sandwich. And this is a person who was pretty reliable and wasn't going to make up stories, so it wasn't someone who just took the tomatoes off the sandwich to screw with us. This was someone who was being sincere. He really went in to check on this, and it had changed. So I was very proud of myself. But someone had to rain on my parade. Someone said, Druff, do you see what you just did? I said, what did I just do? They said, you just improved this guy's business, because he probably drove away a lot of people like you because of his crazy behavior about stuff on the side. Now that he has to do it, he's going to get a lot of repeat customers who never knew of this restriction. And I'll admit, for a moment, I felt kind of dumb. I said, shit, I really am probably making this guy more money, and he doesn't even realize it. But then I go, wait a minute, he doesn't even realize it. That's actually good. If he realized it, that would suck. But from talking to this guy, and from the aggressive tone in his voice and what a dick he sounded like, I'm sure whatever little extra money he made from people who returned to get sandwiches there again because they weren't refused the things on the side. Whatever money he made there is probably dwarfed by how pissed he was that he was compelled to do this. This was someone who was so proud of the fact that he could make this rule and enforce it. And even though the employees clearly didn't like it, they were forced to do it. They were scared. He even would have arguments with customers on the phone, as he did with me, and debates about this. You could see that it was a big power trip to him. So imagine a big power-tripping dickhead like this is told by the corporation, no more. No more. Because of this guy you just had the argument with on the phone, you will never refuse tomatoes on the side ever again, or you are going to lose your franchise. You are violating the rules, sir. And you must shape up or ship out. Imagine how pissed he was. So whatever money he made from repeat customers that may have otherwise not been repeat customers, it was totally worth it. Because you know he was furious. And there's nothing he could do. Because if it's in the contract, it's in the contract. If he just told them, no, F you, I'm going to keep doing it, then they really could, and probably would, remove his franchise. So, provided these things were making money, which they probably were, he was not going to lose it. He was not going to give up the franchise over this. But he got forced by the franchise, by the corporation, to operate it the way they said he had to, and the way I wanted him to. So basically, he was forced to operate it the way I wanted him to, not the way he wanted to run it. And I'm sure that made him really, really mad. And why do I feel good about that? Is it because I'm a sadist? No. The reason that I felt good about that is because it was nonsensical, it was customer unfriendly, it was disrespectful, and it was against the rules of the franchise. And the reason I went there in the first place was because I wanted the expectation that I had of Subway to be met. And it was not met. And he was very arrogant about it. And then he got forced to do what he should have done in the first place. So that was satisfying. So I didn't care if he made a little extra money. And I posted that. I said, you know what? It's worth it. Usually I am not proud of possibly making extra money for terrible business owners, but this was worth it because it pissed him off so much that whatever little extra he put in his pocket, I'm happy to see. So that was the story of tomatoes on the side. Now you may think that this contradicts the advice I just recently gave to Mr. Alan Kessler, where I told Kessler if a franchise location sucks, which in this case was about Burger King when I was talking about Kessler, instead of trying to go to corporate and complain, then just stop going to that location and go to a different one, even if it's not quite as close. And I had a whole speech about that. So am I a hypocrite for having done the opposite? I did call corporate, and I didn't just go to another Subway down the street. I didn't go back to this one. I just think I didn't go to Subway because Subway's not that great anyway, so I was able to do without it. But how come I did go to corporate when I was telling Kessler not to? Well, because it's a different story. I knew this was such a blatant violation of the rules that the corporation might care and did. Whereas if you just call the corporation and say that they were rude to you or they're not returning your calls, the corporation is not going to give a shit. So let's change the story. Let's say that there was no problem with the tomatoes on the side, just the guy making my sandwich is kind of a dick or said something rude to me. Let's say I put a complaint that I wanted to talk to the owner about this and the owner just wouldn't call me. I wouldn't bother calling corporate about it because they're not going to do anything about that because it's very subjective. But this wasn't subjective. This was a blatant rule change that this guy made that he didn't have a right to make. So in that case, it's okay to call corporate. So that is the tomatoes on the side story. I hope you enjoyed it.